Hey YouTube, welcome back. We are going to get a big loot explosion from the Lightless Arbor, and we're going to use this as an opportunity to talk about the kinds of items that you can pick up off the ground. This is post 1.0. I am playing Circle of Fortune. I have my Circle of Fortune rank at 8, which means I expect to see a whole bunch of fancy items on the ground. We're going to discuss the kinds of items that you can pick up, what's valuable, what I think about when I'm looking at items on the ground, item evaluation, things like that. So we got 5 boxes here. Spent a little bit of money. I just spent like maybe like 2 million, 1 million. I spent like 1 million gold, I think. It's all blends together. Let's pop open some boxes and see what matters. What's the kind of stuff that I'm interested in picking up? So I'm currently playing in Circle of Fortune. I want you to know that I am level 99 currently. And because Circle of Fortune really juices up your drops so much, I wouldn't be surprised if people in Twitch chat or people in YouTube told me that they were hiding normal tier 6 exalted items from their loot filter. And I don't judge you for that. I think that's a totally appropriate thing to do because exalted items rain like candy these days for people who are playing in COF, Circle of Fortune, as opposed to Merchant's Guild. What we're going to do is disregard the state of that meta that I just described there. And we're just going to read items and talk about the kinds of builds that they might fit into. So first things first, if I'm looking for an exalted item, I'm looking for something that has exalted damage or like exalted percent health. Something with like exalted fire res or exalted mana, I tend to glaze over that. They're not necessarily bad, but I do tend to glaze over them when I'm evaluating items quickly. So like there are builds out there that want flat mana, but like flat mana on a Jade Amulet, I don't know if I care about that, like a mana stacking throwing attack build. Or you could think about using this as LP fodder with the LP system. You could legendary this onto a unique amulet. And maybe there's something that you're particularly looking forward there. But to me, generically as an item, this is not something that I'm interested in. Things like flat health regen per second. This is like a secondary or tertiary defensive effect. Again, depending on the kinds of builds that you are interested in playing, if you want to use the unique item Vessel of Strife, which gives you ward per second based on your health regen, that's kind of cool. If you want to take advantage of the new buffed health regen blessing that you can get from Lagan in the Empowered Monoliths, maybe you're stacking health regen, and that could be interesting for you too. Or if you're using Shard of the Shattered Lance and scaling your melee cold damage off of that, that could be cool too. But generally speaking, this is the kind of item I don't really care about. Bleed duration, I could see that. Bleed duration, that's pretty good. Ailment duration is a good way of juicing up your single target damage for an ailment build. It's only tier 6. You could do tier 7, but this could be a reasonable helmet to pick up, especially if you're playing a bleed character. Percent endurance, it's another like one of those secondary stats. I want some juice. We haven't seen any juice yet, have we? I want some exalted prefixes with like plus 50 crit multi. Where is the good stuff? But percent endurance is worth talking about because if you're playing a min-max kind of build, there's a shield called Face of the Mountain, which gives you block chance based on your endurance. So there are use cases for some of these things. Just like tier 7 necrotic res, that's garbage. Well, Warlock suddenly exists, and Warlock has a lot of synergy with stacking up necrotic resistance. So like those kinds of, the knowledge of different builds, how metas change, new things being introduced, you got to know about those when you're evaluating all these items. For example, there's no payoff for having Void Res, so this item currently is not particularly exciting. Let's see, strength, Void Res, percent health. Percent health always stands out to me. Flat health, tier 6, tier 7 flat health. I mean, it's good, but percent health stands out to me a lot more. So like tier 6 or even tier 7% health is great. This particular helmet's nice. It's not on like the best base in the world, but the base type has movement speed on it, which is pretty cool. It has a tier 3 and a tier 1 prefix, which means you could seal some of those with a Glyph of Despair, or you could like chaos those and have a couple opportunities to get a different prefix instead. Of course, this is important to talk about when you're looking at items that are on the ground, so I'm going to waste my crafting materials so that you have a better understanding of how to evaluate items. This dexterity, if you have an item that's exalted and has 4 affixes on it, and one of the affixes is a tier 1 affix. If you have those 3 things, it is a guaranteed Glyph of Despair on the tier 1 affix. Every single time. Every single time, it's a guarantee. So having a tier 1 affix that you don't like on an exalted item, it kind of stands out to you like, oh, maybe I could seal that so that I can put a different affix there instead. If you're a Path of Exile gamer, this is kind of like using a targeted Orb of Annulment. Let's keep looking at the rest of the stuff. Void Res, Endurance, garbage, garbage, garbage. For weapons, I'm definitely interested in going Exalted Prefixes instead of Exalted Suffixes, because your prefixes are damage, and your suffixes are stun chance with melee attacks. Let's open up the next box. Actually, you know what? We're gonna go. How about this? I would never consider doing this, except that I care so much about your viewing experience. So I'm gonna ditch all these items over here, and then boop, we'll go back in and make another explosion. Wow, that's a really small. It's not always size that matters, chat. It's all right. So I have this recolored on my loot filter because it has two things on it. This is a healing effectiveness 1x1 idol, which is nice because I'm playing a healing effect build, and it also happens to have Void Res on it. So that's something that I might care about. The rest of these items, staves with percent fire damage on it. Percent fire damage is fine. I wouldn't blame you for keeping this one. A crystal staff is an appropriate endgame base, or you could just look to LP this onto a unique item. So that'd be an appropriate thing. I'm going to keep this Void Res thing. Let's ship the rest of these. And then we'll keep talking about what else is in this loot explosion, which is so... This is an appropriate loot explosion. This is fine. We spent like 1 million gold. Give me a break. This thing has tier 7 vitality on it. Tier 7 vitality on a Acolyte helmet is neat. So for Acolytes, remember, vitality does a couple things. Vitality gives you 1 poison res and 1 necrotic res per point. So building vitality on something like Warlock gives you more necrotic res, and you can do other things with the necrotic res, like scale your ward per second or scale your torment damage if you're playing Sonic Fissure. So that's like the kind of thing vitality might remind you of. Also, for vitality, if you're playing a Necromancer, there are nodes in Dreadshade that give you armor based on how much vitality you have. So maybe this can it scales your life and some resistance, and it gives you armor with Dreadshade, like kind of just 3 things for you. If you're building vitality as a Lich, that's also a good thing to do, because Lich gains armor based on how much life they're missing when they activate their Death Seal. So this is a relevant thing to have. Also, it's a tier 7 modifier. It's vitality. It's pretty much worth picking up. So I'll pick it up too. Flat health. Flat health. Abyssal Decay duration. Okay. So this is an exalted prefix, and I like exalted prefixes. This is a pretty good thing to have. Abyssal Decay duration. This is not really what I'd be looking for. So Abyssal Decay duration refers to this particular skill, Abyssal Echoes, and duration is like another more multiplier that kind of is baked into it, mechanically speaking. Ever since Abyssal Echoes got updated, they added more duration into the skill tree itself. So you already get a bunch of duration. Where's the duration? Duration. You already get a bunch of duration off the Turbulence node. So before the Abyssal Decay rework, this node or this text was really strong, but since the rework, you already have a bit of Abyssal Decay duration, so you're not as excited. Instead, if you're playing a Void Knight, your Abyssal Decay duration, your spell Void damage scales off of Vitality, which is also life, offense and defense at the same time. You probably want like tier 7 Vitality on your helmet, and you also probably want like the hybrid Void damage with flat Void damage on it. So like this is the kind of thing you could potentially put this in your build, but even then for helmets, you could also have plus levels for Anomaly, which is insane for any Void Knight, or plus levels to Volatile Reversal, which is insane for any Void Knight or, Sentinel build, because Volatile Reversal is very strong. So I think this one kind of falls in the not useful category, even though it is an exalted affix. But like even if I were playing Abyssal Echoes, I wouldn't want this affix in my build. We have a helmet with health regen. If you're playing a health regen build, cool, but let's breeze past this. Area for area skills is fine. This is an appropriate pair of gloves. It's got minion health on it. Minion builds. I personally, for gloves, I'm looking for like exalted attack speed, exalted cast speed, or exalted like flat throwing damage, exalted throwing attack speed. Those are the kinds of things that I like. Or maybe exalted armor shred, or exalted, what's another good one? Exalted hybrid health. Those are the kinds of things that you could look for in this. But like realistically, you're only going to get like one exalted affix on your gear. So would you rather have AoE or would you rather have speed of some sort? And personally, I would rather aim for speed. So like these are probably worth picking up, but like knowing myself and like the years that I've spent playing this game already, I would probably never use this. So I might just, leave it on the ground. We'll see. Strength is fine. Oh, this is a good one. Let's talk about that one real quick. Oh, look at this. Wow. Is that tier 6 % void damage, flat void damage. That's something that I might be interested in playing. But, should I keep it? It's only tier 6? I'm not going to keep it. But I will talk about this one. Scepters are interesting in that they're distinct from wands that can roll different affixes on them. So scepters, for example, can get flat mana, but wands can get mana regeneration. And these are 2 new affixes that just got introduced in 1.0. Another thing that scepters can do is they don't have that minus mana cost implicit that wands do, but they can roll minus mana cost on them, and they get tier 6 and tier 7 for -4 and -5 spell mana cost. So there's some important differences between wands and scepters and the kinds of affixes that they can get. So for this one, this is a scepter only affix. You cannot get this on a wand. And this is flat spell lightning damage paired with lightning damage leeches health. You could potentially have this as your only source of leech in a lightning damage build, and that would be sufficient. So this is a good base type with a good scepter only affix on it. I'm going to pick this up. I think this is worth having in my inventory just in case I want to use it someday. So let's keep that one there. The rest of these, let's pick these up and toss them aside, and we'll talk about the 2 last boxes here. Yeet, 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 yeet. Oh, there's tier 7 vitality. I'll keep the tier 7 vitality. Let's dump the rest of this. We got 2 more boxes to discuss. Boop. Got some things here. Looks like a bunch of relics, maybe some body armor. Healing effect is nice. There's one interesting thing that you should know when it comes to like these grails for relics. These grails are class agnostic. You can use them on anyone. When it comes to the LP system in Last Epoch, you should know that if you have a generic unique item that is usable by any class, like a Titan Heart, for example. A Titan Heart is a unique chess piece that any class can use. If you LP a class-specific affix onto that chess piece, it gains a class restriction. So you could have like a Sentinel-specific Titan Heart, for example, if you wanted that thing. So this is like a generic one, but you could put this on anyone. So just worth mentioning that is how the LP system works. I probably don't care about this. Even though I'm a healing effect build, I want tier 7. I'm playing Circle of Fortune. I feel like I can get a little bit luckier than this. I'm also like, for my particular build, I'm using like this base type that has that healing effect implicit modifier to it. So I think these cups are only really useful when it comes to LP. And because the cups can't roll class-specific affixes on them, it's a trade-off, right? Like this cup, this silver grail that we're looking at, is never going to have plus levels to a skill because it literally cannot roll plus levels to a skill. So you can kind of use that as a shortcut to approximate, do I ever want to, like maybe you just hide these on your loot filter altogether. That's a potential. But then again, if you want generic affixes like tier 7 spell crit or tier 7 crit multi, this can of course roll both of those because those are generic affixes. Let's keep going. Mana, boring. Block chance is good. Not block chance. It's tier 6 block chance. I feel like, to me, when I look at a shield, I basically want block chance, block effect, and then as suffixes, I want all res and reduced damage taken as block. Or reduced damage taken on block. That's like generically the best shield that you can get on an iron glass base because the iron glass has the highest base of a block chance on it. For my particular build, I'm building healing effects. So like I skipped out on the block effect and I put healing effect instead because I want damage. But for this thing, it's got block chance. It's got some healing effect on it. You could probably just leave this on the ground. If you pick this up, you're only picking it up because you want to LP the tier 6 block chance onto a unique shield. So do you farm up tier 7 instead? Do you suffice with this? That's up to you. But I'll probably just leave this on the ground. Percent increased physical damage. This is a good thing to talk about. So generally speaking, when it comes to weapons, I don't prioritize having percent increased damage on my weapon. It's something that can be good. It's something that could be very good as well. However, when it comes to weapon prefixes, I tend to aim for one of the few stats that I'm about to list. Melee attack speed, because it feels really good. Flat damage, and melee critical strike chance, because those are things that you can't really get in other places. Melee attack speed, you can't. Melee attack speed, you can get it on like Amulet, you can get it on, or Amulet base type, you can get it on gloves, you can get it in a couple places. But if you really want a ton of melee attack speed, getting like tier 6 or tier 7 melee attack speed on your weapon is a nice place to be. You can get attack speed in other places. The other two, I feel much more strongly about. The flat melee crit chance is really nice to have on a weapon if you're going crit, especially if you don't have sources of flat crit elsewhere. The other one is that flat melee damage, or like flat melee physical damage, flat melee fire damage, flat melee whatever, like the plus additive sign. It's hard to ever have enough flat damage, and the weapon is pretty much the only place to get flat damage. So flat damage, especially exalted flat damage, is extremely valuable. For my particular build, I'm playing this healing hands thing, and I scaled flat damage off of healing effect. So my particular build is one of those outliers where like I don't want flat damage on my weapon because I have this alternate scaling that gives me a bunch of flat damage to my skill. But generally speaking, I would say that you really want flat damage, melee crits, attack speed. Those are the kinds of things that I prefer. But if your build gets one of those elsewhere, then yeah, tier 7 crit multi, do it. Tier 7% increase damage, do it. But that kind of depends on the skill and your knowledge of whatever kinds of builds you enjoy playing. Let's do this. Primalist body armor with lightning damage. This lightning damage thing is fine. It's all right. If you were investigating like Gathering Storms, this would be interesting. Actually, I'm investigating Gathering Storm, and this thing already has health on it. Oh, the non-exalted affixes here are 1, 1, 2, which mean that I can like seal things, or I can like chaos them and have lots of options. And the base type here is % health with cooldown recovery speed. And I'm interested in playing Gathering Storm. You know what? I'll pick this up. I think this is an appropriate thing. Gathering Storm is lightning damage by default, even if you want to convert to something else. Yeah, I could see this. % lightning damage with like % minion lightning damage tends not to be something that I'm looking for, because I know that there's crit multi while transformed, and cooldown recovery speed while transformed on your helmet, and there's flat spell damage for totems. Like there's a lot of really good affixes for Primalist, but like this one, you know what? It's exalted. It's on a good base. It's good, like a pretty clean item that I could work with. I think I'll pick this one up. What's up next? Mana regen on an axe. Nope. I don't know about you, but I like when my weapons deal damage, so I'm gonna skip over this one. We have % melee damage. This is a good thing to talk about. And I think I'm actually going to bring open letools.com, lastepochtools.com. And let me show you why melee damage tends to be something that you basically never, ever, ever want. So this is twofold. We're going to talk about elemental damage and melee damage. So take a look at a one-headed weapon. Let's go like this. I'm going to type in like physical damage. % increased physical damage at tier 7 goes up to 210. % increased cold damage goes up to 210. % increased void damage. Oh, you don't get % increase. Yes. Fire damage goes up to 210. % increased melee damage, on the other hand. % increased melee damage. Where's this thing? It only goes up to 120, which for you math geeks out there, you've already determined is a lot less than 210. It scales multiple elements at the same time, which is supposed to be the payoff for building melee damage, but it's garbage. So why would you ever intentionally put melee damage on your gear? I sure wouldn't. The other thing that I want to talk about real quick is elemental damage, because it comes up in conversation. Let's take a look at a ring as a nice example of this. % increased cold damage goes up to 120. % increased fire damage, 120. % increased necrotic damage. Fuck off. Where's my necrotic damage? Wait, this? There it is. 120. Same 120. % increased spell damage, 120. % increased elemental damage only goes up to 90, which once again is a bit lower than 120. It scales multiple elements at the same time. Technically, But for the most part, I would say your build should not be scaling multiple elements at the same time. You could ponder the kinds of builds out there that want elemental damage, the kinds of builds that have like multiple damage types that are all elemental. And for example, your counterpoint to me could be, well, what about a Rune Master? What about a Rune Master like a tri-ele thing? Well, Rune Masters happen to scale really well on intelligence. They scale really well on intelligence. So when I imagine the kind of ring that I would want to be using if I were a Rune Master, it would be like intelligence as one prefix and spell damage as the second prefix. And I don't think that I would get into a situation where I want elemental damage as one of the prefixes on my ring. So that's how I go about considering those kinds of things. So this is what started the conversation there. This percent increased melee damage. It's garbage. I would not pick this up. As an aside, this is also a spear, which means it's garbage, and I wouldn't pick it up. All right, last one here is this frailty on melee hit, and this is a pretty easy one, right? We make fun of spears a lot because spears don't really have a home in Last Epoch. What we don't do is make fun of maces enough. And we should, because maces also don't really have a home in Last Epoch. So in terms of like my knowledge of the meta and synergies that exist across skills and what kinds of builds use maces, it's basically zero. Nobody really uses maces, unfortunately. But this thing has chance to apply frailty on melee hits. Like we said before, I would greatly prefer to have an exalted prefix rather than exalted suffix on my weapon, because I like when weapons deal damage, and frailty has a maximum stack size of 3. And unless you're doing something really weird, this item does not appeal to me in any particular way. So that's it. We'll do some of these every once in a while. And now that we have COF, wait, did I hide something here? Oh, there's another box. Oh, it's a mace with tier 7 crit multi. Anyway, minion damage, healing effects, intelligence. Ooh, intelligence. Anything else? Frailty, flat armor. I literally almost left without clicking on the last box. That said, none of these items particularly appeal to me. You can pick up this one. This is like a Sentinel relic. It's a good base type. It's got minion damage on it. And like there's minion builds. There's manifest armor. But like you don't want damage over time on a manifest armor build. And you don't want damage over time on a forged weapon build. Fine, I'll keep it. I'm not happy about it, but I will keep it. All right, so let me know if this kind of video is helpful to you. In the past, people seem to really enjoy this, but we haven't remade one of these in a while, and it's nice to kind of chat about what kind of items are on the ground, what I care about, what I don't care about, and the kind of shortcuts that I use in my head to like rapidly identify the kinds of items that I want to pick up. So if you like this video, let me know. If you don't let me know, but I'll see you next time.